Good morning, all. I'm Rajdeep Mukherjee. I lead the big data architecture space within Zurich Insurance Group. Today, we're going to talk about how we're using a data lake, which is built on top of big data technologies, and why we started off thinking about data lake, and then how it's. And then my colleague, who's also here, Chris, he's going to talk about how it's helping drive value in our life insurance business. So, for those of you who doesn't know us, Zurich is a global global insurance business. We have multiple lines of business. We deal with life insurance, general insurance, farmers. These are our main lines of business. We have customers which are ranging from individuals to small businesses to really big-sized multinational businesses. And we serve on about 170 countries. So that's the background of what Zurich does. Moving on, I want to sort of start with what are the key trends we see in our business, and then there's a common theme about how data plays a very important part in all these key themes, right, what we are looking at it. So to start with, it's like the digital trend is a key thing which we are looking at from an insurance business perspective. Now, customers are thinking about, looking at insurance and thinking about interacting with or buying insurance in a way they interact with, buy things over Amazon or Netflixes of the world. And that's sort of driving a lot of digital programs within not only our company, but also other insurance companies as well. Digital transformations and digital program, I think data plays a very important part there. And quick access to data, access to data at all speed and at a low cost is really important for digital programs. What we also see is with advent of IoT sensors and Internet of Things, that sort of provide giving a lot of new business opportunities to the insurance business, like telematics and not only auto telematics, but also building telematics and that sort of things, smart buildings and understanding and stopping a peril to happen before it happened, and thereby sort of reducing some of the claims. But it also gives us challenge in sort of for big companies like to sort of get into those niche areas, understand the data which is coming out of it, and then sort of create data products out of it, use machine learning algorithms, and understand how they can then provide value to the customers. The other areas, understanding risk has always been a part of our business. That's the key part, the key thing what we do. But the most important thing now is actually understanding emerging risks due to, things like, how does nanotechnology can impact a business, can impact insurance business, because it's something which we cannot look at our historical data, or historical claims data, or historical policy data and understand it because it's completely new. So you have to sort of add context to, external data to sort of understand it, right? And then the fourth pillar has always been there, and regulatory, the more and more regulatory programs coming up, like GLB, Solvency II, and it's driving the whole, we have to really understand our data well, manage our enterprise data in a way that we can answer all the questions which our auditors throw at us. So just looking at the current state of data management, this is not only when we started to look at how we should be framing our enterprise data strategy, we looked at our current state of data management, and this is representative of probably all large enterprises. They probably have similar problems. So, there is the EDW, which sort of answers a lot of your, corporate KPIs and corporate answer, but they have no use or little use to our line of business people who needs access to more granular data, like granular claims, granular policies, granular risk details, right? So then what we normally see is there's a lot of LOB marts coming up. But these LOB marts have always been, they are not very flexible to changes. They have fixed schemas, and making changes to them and has been, takes a long time. And then we see our business systems start using spreadsheets, and there's a spreadsheet proliferation as, before we can see it. And then we also have, lots of things like, direct operational, people accessing operational systems, and, proliferation of lots of ODSs. So what we see is like a fragmented landscape, fragmented inside, rigid data structures, and a long cycle sort of change, which is frustrating to the business. And as a whole, we've sort of, that sort of a landscape is not conducive for conducive for getting an enterprise feel of analytics, driving some of the things like digital programs, or doing advanced analytical stuff. So then we started looking at what capabilities should we have to sort of make data analytics and apps work seamlessly. Some of the things which we sort of put there is the key points which we wanted to have in our new data strategy is, we wanted to have a storage where we can store all our internal and external data at a low cost. We want to then process that data and curate that data and expose business views on demand. And wanted to have a data fabric which can be used for multiple workloads, not only for analytical works, type of workloads, but also for operational and real-time sort of workloads as well. Key thing is obviously about supporting changes rapidly, and the next bit is also very important. It's about how we manage metadata and then have a data provenance around that. So not only managing technical metadata, because we were doing that in our legacy landscape well, but also managing the business metadata, giving the power to the business to understand what data is there, and to be then able to create those business views in an ad hoc and on-demand basis, right? So if you wanted to do all of this, we sort of came up with our conceptual architecture, how conceptually the architecture should look like. So what we sort of looked at is, we're having, what we are seeing here is we are getting all our data of not only internal and external data, but, and then we are just creating a raw store, what we call it a raw store, but we make sure that we store history of all this data, and we are able to do that in a manner that is scalable as well. What we then sort of do is like we create what we call enterprise provisioning layer, or a curated layer where we kind of start labeling that data we are getting from our internal and external sources and start putting business context on top of it, right? And we do a bit of flattening of records because some of our internal systems have very data structures which are not conducive for working on Hadoop or and sort of we sort of create big files and consolidation of small files and stuff like that, right? So and then what we start doing is start curating those, creating those LOB views, which are line of business views for example, for a live business or for our global corporate business. And this is at the LOB level. So because we have all the granularity of the data now, right, we are able to serve our LOBs with their requirements. But we are not stopping there, because if we then have we were to create any aggregation on top of it for creating group-level views or corporate KPIs, we are also able to do that sort of stuff. And then finally, what we have is our consumption area, where we are able to then consume those data not only for our analytical purposes or batch purposes, but also for interactive and real-time purposes. For example, digital portals coming in and understanding, a customer view. If you have a customer view, for example, and Chris is going to talk about that later on, is how a live digital program is making use of the data lake to sort of interact with the data as the customer is going through their journey, right? Moving on from the conceptual bit, it's more around how technically we are architected, right? So what we really have is a ingest, persist, process, and provisioning layer, and then we have a curate and consume layer. We kind of have a ingestion framework which has been homegrown, where we ingest, batch ingestion, microbatch in real time. We have adapters which can adapt to, based on what sort of file is coming or what sort of data sources, adapt to that ingestion mode. Then, moving forward, we have, we're persisting and processing data. Within the processing layer, we use a mix of technologies. We use Informatica, Hive, Pig, and Spark, a mix of them where what plays well. And then what we have is more capabilities which are cutting across security, metadata management. As I said, is a very key bit on our whole architecture, because that's what sort of add context about the business of the data, add business context to the data. And then we have the operations management cutting across capability, which is sort of managing the clusters and so on and so forth, right? So that's my bit of the presentation. I mean, Chris is going to come and sort of talk about what we are doing in one of the life insurance business and how we have used all that design consideration and architecture in actual business scenario. Chris, over to you.
Hello, everyone. So, who's heard of Zurich before? Show of hands, please. Not that many. That's because we're one of those kind of quiet little companies that just shuffles along in the background. But actually, we're a massive company. We're one of the top 100 publicly traded companies in the world. I think we're like about 75th or something. But most of you have never heard of us, and that's kind of part of our problem, right? We have a business that's very much broker-driven. People go out and they sell products to their customers, and people don't really know who that comes from. So, for example, a lot of our business is pensions, annuities, things like that. It all comes through corporate schemes. Who knows who their corporate scheme pension provider is? Wow, 2, 3. Wow, I'm impressed. And that's the challenge for us, because the world is changing. Who goes to a broker anymore? Next to no one. You all go to the internet. You want to buy your products online where it's easy, where you've good access to information. And, you can just do it quickly, simply. So for us, we have to start to put the customer first and basically, to a degree, expose ourselves to the customer. They have to know who we are, what we do, how to work with us. That's where we're starting here. We're building something on top of a data lake, but the key to all of this is that we're no longer looking at people as just policies. We're looking at the people behind them. We want to understand who our customers are, how we work with them, what their needs are. So, we've got the data lake there, and hey. So 2 things we're working on at the moment to very much, service our customers. So for the first time ever, we're doing a single customer portal that all of our customers can come to and see all of their policies, regardless of what type of policy they have, whether it's an annuity, a pension, whatever. You can come to one place and you get to it. And that's something we could never do before. It's stuff we've all tried in the past. It was just too hard. But the difference is with having a data lake there, we can finally actually live the dream to a degree. So we're a bit different to a lot of data lake projects. We're not doing research data lakes as a primary consideration. We're doing what we call an operational data store, basically. But Hadoop is absolutely allowing this to happen. So primarily we get our customer website up. And then secondly, our customer service teams, they'll have a single system based on Salesforce that allows them to understand who they're talking to. So you know what, when we talk to a customer, we don't just talk about policy 1, 2, 3, 4. We notice that, hey, you've got other policies with us. Oh, you wanted to do an address change. We're not just going to do it to one policy anymore. We're going to get it for all your policies. We're going to help our customers. We're going to try to service them. We're going to meet their needs. So that's the dream. That's where we're trying to go. course, to get there, we've got to take the pain. And like a lot of companies that have been around a long time, we have a lot of systems. Hey, we've been trading for years. We've still running IT from the 60s. I don't think we're unusual there. We have a lot of mainframe systems. As time goes by, we add more and more systems. We build up our capabilities. But like most companies, we never really managed to get around to getting rid of the old stuff. At some point, maybe some things die off through attrition, but for the most part, they're there and we have to deal with them. At one point before we looked at trying to get rid of our mainframe systems, 100 million. That's what it was going to cost us if we wanted to do it a traditional way. Because there's so much business logic in there, we just have to get it all out and put it into something else, and that's no easy task. See, when we look at it, the problem is we have policy admin systems all over the place. I think we have 12 core policy admin systems. So that's 12 places our customer's data could be. So if you're trying to talk to your customer, that's a lot of shuffling around trying to find out who they are, what they do. Try to tell somebody what their balance is. It's not easy because we're dealing with all these different technologies. So what we're trying to do right now is pull all the data out of those systems, and that's a hard task, right? Because we're dealing with stuff that I don't want to work with IMS data sets, redefines, arrays within redefines. It's really complicated stuff, and you have decades of business logic that's encapsulated in the core applications, and you've got to go talk to the SMEs, understand the PL1 and the COBOL to try bring all that logic out. So what we're trying to do is get that and fundamentally try to get a lot of that business logic into the data lake. Because if we can do it once, then we have something that's always there that people can come and just plug into. And that's one of the key points of the data lake is that we're going to have something that's up 24/7. It's not like the mainframe systems where we've got to take them down for about 12 hours a day to run their batch cycles. We can now finally start to give data to our customers all the time. But yeah, that's hard. And so key tool we're using there, actually, it's one of the partners here today. It's called Achinity. Really good piece of software. It allows us to be able to pull out the data wholesale and then on an ongoing basis do a CDC on it. So what that is, it's fundamentally flagging at the point of change that something's happened to a record. We pull that into the lake, and then we can show that data in real time to our customers as time goes by. Obviously, we're not there on day one. We're building up towards it, but that's the dream. Somebody makes a change, and it's instantly visible everywhere else. So you get to start to move towards real-time analytics then, and really trying to understand and service your customers. Absolutely key. And of course, this is where we want to think we're going, right? As soon as we've got the data lake, things are going to fly. We'll be there. We'll have arrived. It's Nirvana. Silver bullet, right? So yeah, to get there, the problem is, again, we have so many systems. You could be anywhere. You could have gotten married. You could have moved house. You could have gone and done a deed poll and changed your name. You might have one system where you've only got your first initial, another system where you don't have your national identifier. It's really hard to pull all this data together, and that's a challenge for us. Is that the same person, or is that brothers? We have to figure that out on an ongoing basis. So, and that's the thing. It's never easy to understand who your customers are, but we've got to build all those rule sets in. So as Raj mentioned, we're using Informatica as one of the key tools for that. So we're using a lot of their data quality tools to just, go and fundamentally just spot those patterns, identify those people, give them ratings. And of course, if we're not sure who they are, then we talk to them. We try to, just do a bit of ID and V, figure out who they are, check that, do you happen to have another policy? Did you happen to work for Pepsi at some point? Pull these things out so we can then go around and correct their data everywhere. Because it's not just servicing the data or servicing the customer, of course, right? We're also trying to be an efficient business. If we're sending out statements from 12 systems to the same person, A, they think we're rubbish. B, we are being a bit rubbish. And C, it costs us money. We've got to send out those statements. We have to build the templates to create those statements. We have to maintain them all on an ongoing basis. That's painful. So yeah, very much trying to just become more efficient, more modern as a company. Because let's be honest here, we're an insurance company. We're never going to be the cutting edge, right? We're very much following what others have created before. And this is one of the few times I think where we're really trying to get onto the bleeding edge and do something because it's the right thing to do. If we can pull this off, it's absolutely going to transform how we run our company. So yeah, now that we actually have a data lake, it's up, it's running, it sits behind those two systems that I showed you. It's operationally live. The theory has been proven, which is great because there's a lot of doubters out there. This is the new world stuff. Some people think we're being a bit mad. But yeah, now that we have it, we've got to start doing things with it. So starting off, understand your customers, customer profiling. So the marketing people are chomping at the bit to get all this data. Now, of course, there's the data governance questions. We don't know if we have the permissions to market to all these people yet. You got to go and check them all because those systems from the 60s, they weren't worried about who you had email permissions to because email didn't exist, right? So we've got to go and figure out all these things, figure out who we can talk to, figure out what their profiles are, and understand them better. Cross-selling. So as Raj mentioned, I work in the life side of the business. We have a general insurance side of the business. completely separate legal entities. We can't just take their data and compare it to our data. We've got to go sort out all the legal constraints. But then once we are there and we've got their data lake, our data lake, we can start to pull these opportunities together. Maybe we notice that somebody just added a new person to their house because maybe they just had a child. Hey, that's a really good time to sell them some life insurance. Try spot these business opportunities, get some synergy in there. And fundamentally, it makes it easier for our customers as well. Because if they like us as a company and they have us already, why would we not try to simplify their lives to a degree? Data quality assessments. Like I said, people move around. When was the last time you talked to your pensions company? You don't come to financial services company and tell them what's going on in your life. We find out about it occasionally. You happen to call us up. We happen to find out something new about you. And we're always trying to catch up with people because people don't want to come and tell us that they just moved house or they've changed the name or got married unless it materially impacts their policy. So what we're trying to do here then is identify where we do think we have the same people. Where are the data quality issues? Because if we're sending a letter to an old address where they don't live anymore, what's the point? We're cutting down trees, we're wasting money, nobody's winning. But if we can try to drive out those differences and then take actions to actually say, oh, by the way, Mrs. Smith, did you happen to move address? Can we go and update things? Then that's a real win for us. The data scientists, the people I wish I was. So we've got all this data, I think we did a rough calculation at one point. Our data lake could hold about half of the iTunes music store. It sounds fantastic, right? But when you've got all that data, you've got to do something with it. And I think it's something people forget about insurance companies. What's the key asset of an insurance company? Data. We don't own things, we don't sell physical items. We just have information about people. We assess that information, we give it to the actuaries, and that's how we run our business. And actually, in terms of trying to get data scientists, for us, the actuaries are kind of the closest thing we have because these are people who are used to crunching numbers, trying to go with a hunch and figure out whether it's right or not. And maybe for us, that's where we're going to start, before we actually start to get in real data scientists. Anti-money laundering, that's something we absolutely have to worry about. So I'm based in the UK. The laws are pretty strict there. If anyone here is from Germany, they'll know just how painful those laws can be as well. And I say painful, it's necessary. We have to do it. We want to protect our customers' assets in the end of the day. So we're always trying to make sure that we're adhering to the law and serving our customers correctly. So we have tried to do kind of anti-money laundering type things, financial crime type spotting in the past. It was just too hard. We spent years and millions trying to get there. And fundamentally, we have now gotten further in 1 year than we did in about 2 years before because big data enables all this opportunity. We can finally start to crunch all those numbers and pull the patterns together and even identify things where we didn't know they were there yet. So absolutely, this could be fantastic for industries like ours. It's a bit of a niche aspiration of mine. We, as a company in the UK life industry, we have 345 supported applications. For us, that's a lot. And to be honest, a lot of them, because they're old business, we just have them there for reference reasons. Nobody's going to go in there and change the code. Nobody's going to go, do a bug fix or anything like that. It's just there to be looked up. Why are we maintaining that? We have them in multiple environments. You've got them in dev, sit, UAT, prod, all those servers sitting there not really doing anything. Just get the data, put it in the data lake, surface it with some logic, and hey presto, you can get rid of all these old systems. Feeding the robots. So I think the keynote speaker might have some issues with me here. We do have robots. We have a lot of dull, monotonous, repetitive tasks that people used to do, and now we're beginning to hand them off to the robots. Now, robots aren't going to take everything away right now. Very much they're the kind of tasks they're well suited for are ones that are not complicated, not a lot of variety, and you have to do them thousands of times. So why would we not build a robot to take those tasks and the data lake can just feed data to them? Again, it's going to make us run more efficiently as a company. It's better for the customer, it brings our costs down, it brings our the price of our policies down. And then when we're finished feeding the robots, we'll feed the machine. What I mean there is that we will have systems that we're looking to couple with the data lake. So fundamentally, for a good example would be an illustrations engine or a calculation engine. Why would you have a calculation engine for every policy admin system when you could just have one that gets the data from the data lake? The same with print composition. Why would you have 12 different print composition engines maintaining lots of different standards or templates if you could have a single one and just maintain it all in one place? And this is the dream for us, to get everything to a single place where we cut our costs down, make it much easier to manage, and allows us to be more dynamic as a company. We can move faster. So yeah, it's been quite a journey for us. Like I said, we're an insurance company, we're not an IT company. So we've learned a lot along the way. And one of the key ones for me is keeping the data close. Now, I don't mean don't put it to the cloud. What I mean here is actually keeping control of your data. So simple example here, Salesforce. Salesforce is brilliant, we love it, we rely on it, but we're very much constrained by what they can do. And it just about works for us at the moment, and of course over time, they'll add more and more capabilities and it'll be a better fit. But we have other suppliers where they effectively host systems for us, where they can kind of change stuff in a whim. They can't really tell us with certainty how things work because that would be their confidential information, and it's really hard for us to build things on the back of that. So everything else would be real time, except for the ones that we don't have control of because we are subject to their whims. So if you can keep control of your systems, do. I mean, outsourcing sounds great, but God, it can come at a cost, right? Profiling your data. And now what I mean here is actually not just going in and checking that things are populated and checking, how accurate they tend to be and things like that, but actually profiling how your data changes. So one of the key things for us, is we've seen that things happen within the code that you would never expect. A favorite one this week was we found a system that allowed people to change the primary keys, which, from a data management perspective becomes, a bit of a challenge. So yeah, you've got to go in there and not just see what your data looks like, but how it changes as part of the process, because you're going to fall into traps otherwise. You're going to miss logic that you needed to capture. Yeah. I am the law. Work with legal. Like I said before, for companies like ours, you cannot underestimate the contractual challenges that could be in place. Because for all these good things we want to do to help our customers, we have contracts we have to adhere to, and we can't go against them. So talk to your legal departments early. Make sure that you're ahead of the curve on that, because the last thing you want to do is build all this stuff and find out you're not allowed to use it. I think this is probably an obvious one to the room, is just curate the lake. Don't let it turn into a data swamp, right? It's so easy to give in to those, quick whims of the business. Can't I just put in this spreadsheet, as a one-off thing that you'll have to maintain forever? You always have to, hold the line to a degree, keep the quality standard in place. And a big one for us, use real data. So obviously as a financial services company, we have a lot of people's personal data. We have their sensitive data. We have their medical data. We have their bank details. So security is absolutely sacrosanct at our company. We always have this strict segregation of keeping test data in the test systems and prod data in the prod systems. Nobody's allowed access to the prod data unless it's part of their job. And I'd like to take all of that away, please. Because fundamentally, when we're profiling our data, you just can't do it with the test data. Customer matching is a great example for that. So when we tried to do it with the test data, we found out that everybody got 6,000 matches. Not very useful. So that's a real challenge for companies. How do you actually still work with real data to try fundamentally accelerate your deliverables and make sure you're getting there more efficiently, but equally making sure that it can be tested and the right controls are still in place and get everybody comfortable. It's not an easy task, but you should absolutely aim to try to do it. Just do it in a controlled and secure way. So on the back of that, thank you for your time, and any questions for Raj or myself? Raj or myself?
For you, what is the biggest challenge organization-wise you were facing when approaching that project?
As in bootstrapping the project? Yeah. Getting the right stakeholders engaged is always the problem. We have a number of the key executives who kind of get it, and they've been, absolutely, key to allowing us to go forward. But from time to time, you do get these unexpected challenges from senior people as to why are we doing this? Why can't I use a data warehouse? And you feel like you're telling people the same thing and over again. But having those key few stakeholders in there, and for us, it's going to be our chief operating officer at the global level, a guy called Robert Dickey, absolutely gets data. He understands we are effectively a data company, and everything we do has to be driven by data. So he's been, should we say, it's great to have you've got to have that 600-pound gorilla in your corner who can go in and just say, no, do it this way, do it the right way. Well, you started before me, Raj.
So we started the program at the start of 2015. So it's about a year and a bit. Yeah.
Implementation or also the pre-discussions with the business?
The pre-discussions we started in, I think, somewhere end of 2014. So mid to end of 2014, right? So the way we are structured here is we run the whole foundational piece as a global program, right? And then we start and engaging with our lines of business. So Chris is from life insurance. We sort of engage with general insurance and start bringing them on the platform based on their use cases. So the global implementation started, as I said, 2015, and then we get the whole foundational stuff done. And then parallelly, we're working with Chris and his team to sort of get his use case done.
Yeah, we've been kind of very lucky to a degree with this actually as well, because those two programs I mentioned at the start, they're such behemoths as well, that they've really been kind of, those enablers of allowing us to do this. If you just had one of those, it'd be very hard to get people to allow you to have those arguments. But yeah, when you've fundamentally got those enterprise-changing projects underway, it really gives you those opportunities. You got to run with them. But yeah, so luckily things aligned very nicely in that regard.
Actually, I have two questions. The first one is, was it sort of hard to convince people in the organization to put the data into the lake, or did they go along nicely?
Not as hard as you'd think, actually. A, like we mentioned, you've got some senior stakeholders there. B, we absolutely started working with our security function from the get-go. For us, we're talking about putting our entire intellectual property into a single place. So, you have to bring them on the journey. And actually, what we kind of found was we started off just doing effectively a proof of concept. And before we'd even kind of really got the proof of concept up and running, the business had already kind of accepted this needed to happen. So we were quite lucky there that, I guess, again, people were beginning to understand where we were going and why we were going there and why we needed to go there.
Yeah, I think the other bit of it is what I see from a global program perspective is as the maturity of the country. So we have business units which are effectively country. And it's the maturity of a country with what they want to do with their data and their program. It's sort of what drives when we start talking that do you want to put your data in a data lake, because it's a bit of work for them as well and a cost for them as well, right? So I think UK and life insurance were like, they knew what they wanted to do. They had a senior exec buy-in into the program, right? So that's the easier case, right? But then we want to sort of bring our other BUs onto the same level of maturity. I think there's a lot of education, empathizing with their position, which needs to happen first, like a business engagement almost, and before they are finally convinced. So we sort of work with those BUs, bring them up to the speed of what they can do, what this platform can do, what are the arts of possible, doing POCs and pilot for them, before they finally sort of start turning out.
I guess the other thing I'd probably mention as well is, we mentioned working with real and test data that, fundamentally we were doing so much with test data for so long that, we were absolutely had all the frameworks in place that we could demonstrate to people that it was all being security managed, before we had to fundamentally get them to sign off.
Yeah, second one is a more detailed one. When you talked about the customer matching, was it something where Informatica helped you with a toolkit, or did you have to do lots of that?
Well, it's more that we're using their tool, and I mean, we're working with Deloitte Consulting as a delivery partner, so they have a lot of people who know the tool very well. But yeah, we haven't had to go to Informatica per se that I'm aware of.
No.
No.
Yeah, but I can take that up if you really want to understand how we have done that, so we can take that up offline. No worries. Yeah.
Sure.
How big organization do you have in order to run the data lake, both in business?
That's a good question, actually, because I think one of the keys to, should we say, the success of the data lake is very much hitting critical mass. So for us, Zurich has, 60,000 staff, give or take. But on the UK Life side, we're just a few thousand people effectively. But it is the thing, it's more that we have this scale of systems that allowed us to make the argument because, we have to get all that data in there. And I keep shouting to our business that, they very much have to continue with this journey. It's not a single delivery. It's not a silver bullet where you just do it and it's done. You've got to keep adding to it. You've got to keep getting all the systems in there, because if you don't get enough systems in there, people won't come to you effectively with more business, because they'll still be plugging into multiple things. And they'll be wondering why they spent all this money on it. But yeah, so...
Isn't that guaranteed, more or less, at some point?
That everybody will plug into it?
Well, no, that you will never get there.
Oh yeah, we accept there will always be a handful of things that there's just no business case for. So we have one of the policy admin systems has about 3,000 closed cases that are effectively just being run down. And actually, I say that, I used to think we'd never put it in, but I just got a requirement to put it in last week. But there will always be some things that it just doesn't make sense to put in there. There's just no cost justification. But I mean, the key for me here is it comes back to, what are those core business requirements? And for us, we're very much having to change the company to make sure that we're customer focused. And I don't mean that at a superficial level. I mean, it's really a cultural thing that we've been adopting. You start to look at our standard corporate templates, and there's sections in there. How does this help the customer? We really are becoming that company.
Was it for you a bigger problem dealing with the volume of data that all your systems were generating, or the fact that you have so many different systems living on different platforms?
Oh, it's the latter.
It's the latter.
Absolutely.
I mean, in our business, we are not trying to solve a volume problem as such. It's more the variety. It's about, so we also have data where we don't have seek completeness, and how we sort of then complete that picture. And I think where we have seen that plain old SQL doesn't sort of work at that area where we want to fuzzy join or fuzzy match customers, or sort of match customers based on certain features to sort of complete that picture. Like we're working with our other lines of business, which is a global corporate lines of business, and they have they write sort of a global policy, but then it's serviced across different parts in the world, right? And then we want to bring data from those all different things. And effectively, we can't see a policy ID or claims ID matching, but then you have to start joining all that thought using this feature engineering and stuff like that. And that's where I see that big part where we're trying to sort of solve that problem.
Yeah, I think reflecting back on the project, absolutely the hardest bits have been just dealing with the sources, because it's not just the variety of them and the complexity of them, but actually what we find is, people cut corners all the time. And effectively, to make this work effectively, you've got to go fill in the cracks to a degree. And in a way, that's good, because you could kind of say the Data Lake project is a health check of the company, right? We're going around and fixing things as we go because we have to. And it's great that you kind of have that reason to nudge the business to make these things happen, things that should have happened a long time ago.
In terms of volume of the data, how large is the volume?
So it depends on lines of business, right? So we haven't brought all our lines of business yet in, right? UK Life, do you have any, on top of your head?
Well, it depends how you
tricky
measure it, right? Are you talking about one layer, the number of records, the number of tables? I mean, I can tell you one table is 141 million records, but what does that tell you, right? Unless you know the width.
Right. I mean, it's a very tricky question because it's a global company, right? The volume of data, it's not going to be in the range of, say, what you see in, say, Amazon's or Google's and that sort of, right? So we are not high volume business in some sectors, but then other sectors, life and other stuff, we are kind of high volume. So it really depends on what line of business we are bringing in.
The reason I asked is, did you try some other solutions before you go to Data Lake?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have been trying to solve this whole enterprise data management problem for a while now. I mean, I've been in Zurich for a couple of years, but then you have been here
10 years,
10 years now, right? So yes, we tried to solve this problem with other technologies previously, right?
It's the schema and read capability, that's the key, right? That historically, you've always had to try come up with this enterprise data model. And we have one, we worked with IBM back in the day on the IAA model, I think it is. But again, it's just so hard to get everything to fit into it, whereas when you're doing your data lake, because we're what we call consumption driven, right? We only build something when somebody needs it, and we're always then just effectively taking, I like to call it's a system agnostic view of the data. We're just solving those problems for this piece of data when we need to present those pieces of data.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you see your data lake as being a primary source of all the data?
No.
What are you going to do about those in the future?
So the mainframes stay because we can't take all the processing off them easily. And one thing I would say is that we absolutely look at the data lake as it is not a system, a master system of record. It is just reflecting the master systems of record.
And so on future developments, or where do you get your data, would you be happy to pull up a new?
Oh, well, we'll start to shift things to plug into the data lake. So that would be, shall we say, the access point. But fundamentally, it's still being flowed through like the likes of a Unity, or whether it's just an extract, into the data lake and then just being surfaced out through that, those single points.
So a new system, if you pull up a new system, it will be a separate system and it has its own data. You'll just replicate the data.
Well, actually, Interestingly, Salesforce is a good example here. So the way we kind of look at it is there's kind of, shall we say, 3 logical data sources for Salesforce. So it has its core database that it needs to be able to do searches efficiently and store the things that it stores. Then there's the bits where it pulls data from our data lake on a batch basis. So that's where it gets the customer match data out of it and things like that. And then the third bit is when it comes to the data lake and it just asks a specific question. So, give me the policy valuation for this person, or give me, a list of, their last 10 addresses, whatever it is we do. So you are kind of getting towards that hybrid model. But, obviously it depends on your business case, right? What problem you need to solve at the time and what tools you have available.
Right. So I think we can take one more because it's just getting closer to the time. So yeah.
Or if you want to ask us afterwards, right?
Do you guys have typically a centralized data engineering team, or do you try and build skills on your source applications?
So we have a centralized data engineering. So when we started off, right, so we wanted that we have a centralized platform team, right, which sort of builds all the platform and DevOps type of stuff, right? And the data engineering, I think at the moment is mainly happening with the business units. So Chris and his life side at our data engineering team, they're probably working with some partners and bringing in, right? But we are slightly trying to now shift towards a more centralized data engineering team with a smaller team on the BU side, mainly to understand their business logics and SME type of things, right? And then move data engineering as a central practice. So that's what we are trying to move this year. But when we started off, it was like fragmented team with a central run team. But yeah, we are trying to move to that more central team with SMEs sitting in the business and be interacting with them and then doing the data engineering because it sort of gives us the economy of scale and also sort of keeps the data engineering and architecture practices more in one. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to take offline questions, both of us. So
yeah, we're
around the whole day, and he's around tomorrow as well. So feel free to grab us. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.